everyone, and welcome to the Insights from a Headhunter. My name is Tiina Pereira, and I'm so excited to present today's guest, Brenden Kumarasamy. He's the founder of MasterTalk, and he's a communication coach. He helps corporate executives and entrepreneurs to become the top 1% communicators in their industry. I first met Brenden on Clubhouse, and it wasn't that he was such a good communicator. Of course he is, but it's the way he made the audience feel. I was mesmerized. He really knows how to communicate and make you feel good. So welcome, Brenden.
Hey, it's great to be here, Tina. I love the work that you do, and I'm grateful to have this conversation with you today.
Me too. So let's dive in. But before we start talking about the communication tools for job interviews, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point, I mean, you nailed the introduction. My name's Brenden. I'm the founder of MasterTalk, a YouTube channel I started a few years ago to help the world master the art of communication. And I also have a coaching practice where I train a lot of incredible people like you, communicators. So for me, the journey started, Tina, when I was in university/college. I went to business school, and I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age were playing like rugby or basketball or like football, I was one of those guys, as you can tell by looking at me. I'm not really a sports guy. I did presentations competitively, and that's how I learned how to speak. But then as I got older, I started coaching people who were younger than me, mostly students back then, because I realized that a lot of them wanted to win these competitions, Tina, but they didn't have access to a coach. And I wasn't one, by the way. I was just kind of helping them through the journey. And then 3 years after that, when I graduated and I landed a job in corporate America, I had the idea for Master Talk because I realized that everything that I was sharing online for students, wasn't available online for free on the internet. So I started making videos in my basement. One thing led to another, and here we are today.
Oh yeah, fantastic. And I am so happy to talk to you about job interviews because you have been in the corporate world, and let us dive into that. And really, one thing that people forget is like, how can you make an impression before you come to the interview?
Absolutely. You know what a lot of people say in podcasting is the pre-show is the show. And what that means is the relationship that you build with somebody before the show actually begins is actually the key. Because if you build a poor relationship, it's like, oh, yeah, I'll have you on, whatever. And then you get on, the person who's jumping in has a certain mindset. So that analogy applies just as well to job interviews. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's two candidates, Tina, and candidate A is applying directly to, let's say, an IBM and gets an interview and joins that interview versus candidate B who also gets an interview at IBM, but has met five of their executives for coffees, has met people, has built relationships. The mindset that those interviews will have in those sessions will change. I'll explain why. When candidate A walks in, they won't really know who that person is. They'll go, "Oh wow, this might be a great candidate." Candidate B, the executive's already talking to the interviews and going, "Hey, I heard Tina's a really good candidate today. I had coffee with her. She's amazing. You're going to have a great conversation with her." So we're entering that room before you even get into the room. We're already thinking, "Oh, Tina must be a great candidate." And this is what human beings do, Tina, is when we invent stories in our mind, we try and find examples and analogies to make those stories true. So what's the principle here? The principle here is take every advantage you can. If you have relationships at the company, if you have coffees with them before your interview, they'll already like you before the interview starts, and that might just be enough to get the job.
Very, very good point. Really build the relationships. It doesn't have to be in person, but also sending messages and showing that you're interested before you start. That's a really good one. So we have answer to that one. So think about it. What are the biggest mistakes that people make during the interviews, and how to avoid them?
Absolutely. So there's definitely a bunch of mistakes, but I would say the biggest one that stands out to me when I interviewed a few years ago for jobs was people don't play team. So what does that mean? Whenever we think about the job interview process, Tiina, I know you're an expert in this. We usually think of it from a siloed perspective, an individual perspective. Okay, I'm applying for a job that Tiina is, and it's me versus Tiina, and I need to beat Tiina or Tiina needs to beat me. So it's kind of like this fighting mechanism that we always have in our mind. And if I interview with 300 people and I compete, I'll win. I've always felt that that's the wrong approach. And the reason it's the wrong approach is because you'll exhaust yourself really quickly. It's not really fun. And no one's looking over your shoulders. No one's looking after you in the process. No one's trying to help you succeed. Whereas what I did that was very unique, I would say, when I was in university, is when I was applying for management consulting jobs at McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, IBM, Oliver Wyman, and Accenture. I wasn't just interviewing randomly. I was actually prepping my interviews because I was a broke student back then, so I couldn't really afford somebody like me back then. I was just picking other students that were really smart people that I knew could get jobs. And we all worked together. So that sounds really counterintuitive because you might go, well, Brenden, they're your competition. Why would you work with somebody? But what they don't understand, Tiina, is let's point out this analogy here. Let's say all four of us work together as a team and we're all looking at each other's resumes, we're eating pizza together, we're having a lot of fun, and let's say everyone gets a job except for me. That sounds like a bad outcome. But the truth is it's not. Why? Because who's the first person that they're going to refer? You. Because you're the person who put in all the work to help them. And that's the benefit. The other benefit that's the most important is those four people in a pod will beat any individual candidate. And that's why all of my friends and I got multiple job offers out of university because no one could compete with us.
Oh, fantastic. And also when you're teaching to others, when you're helping others, you're learning yourself as well. So if you are finding yourself out of a job, connect to other people who are in a similar situation, eat pizza together and compare notes because it's all about the practice, how much time and effort you put in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you already touched upon preparation. So, what would you do? What would be your advice to prepare for an interview?
Absolutely. You know the way I think about this, Tiina, is preparation is everything, but practicing in the right way is also key. So one thing I used to do when I was interviewing for jobs is I would make a list of every possible question I could get asked, and I would write out the answers to those questions. And the reason I would do that is so that my answer is a lot more structured. You know, when I was a part of the hiring team at IBM for the last 6 or 8 months that I was working there, I was so disappointed by the answers I was getting from candidates because they would walk into a room for like a very like prestigious job. This is not like like a random job. This is a job where you could become an executive at the company if you work hard enough. And I would just ask them the simplest question in the book. Tell me about yourself. And they would always start answers like this. Yeah, so I've worked at this company for a few years, and I'm just listening to this person, and I'm thinking in my head, there is no way I'm going to put this person in front of one of my clients. No way,
Yeah.
right? And that's what the manager is always thinking about. Everyone who's listening is they're not just thinking about the context of your interview; they're also thinking about the context of your responsibilities at work. Am I comfortable putting this person in front of a team, especially in a service or a client-facing role? So, what's the takeaway here? The takeaway that I did is I would write literally structured answers to every question, and I would practice them so many times, right? And people could type in the chat, how many times do you think I practiced? Tell me about yourself. Okay. Start thinking about how many times that is. You might think it's 5 or 10 times, but the truth is I practiced that one question 100 times until it was perfect. But I practiced it so many times to the point where it didn't sound robotic anymore. So when I would get into that interview and I would make an impression, people would look at me and say, "Oh wow, this candidate's very different than everyone else I've listened to today."
Yeah, you really have to make yourself memorable. You have to stand out, and it's really not rocket science. The questions, the same questions, come back in each and every interview. So of course there will be questions that will not come, but most questions are the same standard one, and people are curious. They want to get to know you. What's different about you? What is your why, and what motivates you? Not we can all read your CV. You don't have to tell or read your CV in tell me about yourself. You really have to do something different. And like you said, we always imagine, what about the internal client? What about the internal stakeholders? Will they approve of my decision of hiring you? Because you put your own reputation on the line. So it's not only about what is happening in the room, but can I see this person presenting our company, and also having coffee with you? So preparation is really, really the key to everything. And you said about practicing. How could you best practice, or with whom?
Absolutely, Tina. I completely agree with everything you shared because they got your resume. You don't need to just keep repeating all the same things over and over again. You got to prioritize to maximize the outcome that you're looking for. I would say the second piece, it really comes down to energy and an ethos that I coach my clients on, which is if we communicate 20% better than our competition, we will stand out 100% of the time. So it's not about doing 1,000 things right. It's about doing the three things that nobody else is doing so that you stand out from everyone else. So going back to practice, what does this look like? To keep things really simple today, Tina, it's really about making sure that when you're sharing your ideas and your answers, that you're doing it in a way that inspires people to hire you rather than informs them about your progress. Let me give you a quick example of candidate A and candidate B. So, candidate A, let's say they're doing a tell me about yourself, might sound something like this. Hi, my name is Brenden, and if there's anything that you remember from this interview, it's that I help other people achieve. So notice how like the answers doesn't sound that bad, but the way that it's projected is terrible. So you got to watch the energy versus candidate B, who might sound something like, it's great to be here, everyone. My name is Brenden Kumarasamy, and if there's one thing that you take away from this interview is that I help other people achieve rocket ship level success. And there's three key experiences. So notice how the energy there is very different. And this is where we go into different areas. This is where you need to have honest friends around you who aren't afraid, Tina, to say, hey, by the way, and by the way, you're a great honest friend for people because you tell the truth. You don't go like, oh yeah, that was nice. You go, okay, look, do you really want a job? Like it's time for us to be honest with ourselves. Because I feel, and this is just based on the candidates I've interviewed, and I'm sure you have a lot more experience than I do in that area. I've probably interviewed like 50 or 100 candidates probably in my career. And it's, I would say 95% of them just don't show up with the energy that mirrors their excitement. Like you cannot say in an interview, I have a passion for this and not look passionate. Like it just doesn't work. But just showing that energy, Tina, differentiates yourself because your energy is mirroring the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, it really brought me back memories when I was at the university and I took a course in statistics, and the professor said, I'm passionately interested in statistics. And we were like, okay, so we want to see if something is really boring, how would you look like then? And I never forgot about this, because it's all about the energy, not only the words that you are saying. And that brings me to the next question. It's because the energy when you're meeting somebody in person, it's one thing, but when you meet online, and nowadays most first interviews are virtual. So how do you prepare for a virtual interview?
Absolutely, and I'm sure you're an expert at this, Tina. Is the way I would do it virtual is the difference is really about making sure that when you do the interview, that you practice before the actual Zoom call. Let me give you an example. So one thing I like to recommend students do is get on a Zoom call before the real thing and have people comment on everything. Like I know we had a fun conversation a few weeks ago. You're like, oh, Brett, I don't like your background. Like, why do you got all these random things? So I changed my background. So now it's just a white background, right? So now you
I
don't
love
see
it.
anything. Even if that cupboard is still right there, it's just nobody sees it. So,
It's the same. I'm just moving. Like I could be showing this part, but I'm not. So this, I'm just showing this one, and it's really like intentional on purpose.
absolutely. And we need those honest truth tellers to get on a call with you on Zoom and go, look, Tina, look, Brendan. What's that shit behind your wall? Like, let's fix this to make sure that you get the result you're looking for. Whereas it astounds me, Tina, that most people don't practice a virtual interview before the real actual interview. So get on a Zoom call with your friends. Obviously, if you can afford a coach, hire one because you'll get results faster. But I'm also empathetic to the point that, hey, look, maybe somebody can afford a coach. So if you can, just hire, I mean, not hire, get friends of yours, 2 to 3 people that are your friends. They might already have jobs. They just really want to support you and say, hey guys, I'm really looking for feedback. I'm being vulnerable here. Let's get on a Zoom call. Be honest with me. In the same way, by the way, if I ever go back to corporate, which will be never, but let's say that ever happens and I need a job for some reason, let's say my business goes to zero for something crazy, and that happens, I know the people I'm going to call. Like, I know the 5 phone numbers I'm going to call right away and say, hey, Richard, I need you to help me prep for my next interview. And they'll all take the time because they want to see me win. Who are those people for you? Find those people and have them prep you. And one other point, since we're talking about virtual, I'll add a couple of more tips on top. Remember that in virtual presentations, the secret is you always got to look at the camera lens, right? You never want to look directly at the screen for the person you're speaking with, because the illusion you're creating is when you look directly at the camera, people feel like you're looking at them directly. So that's the first piece. The other piece that we talked about already, have people prep. And then the third piece is try and get coffees with people who work at the company to try and understand the culture a bit more. Like when I interviewed at IBM, a lot of the people in that consulting division were very happy people. So if you go into an interview, even if you're the most accomplished person on earth and you talk like this, you'll never get a job at IBM because of culture, right? But other firms are different. So understanding that nuance really helps so that you fit into the culture as well as you're speaking.
Yeah, that's really good tips. And one thing is to prep, but you can also record the session so you can watch it back. It's painful to hear your own voice and see it, but it's the best thing, because if you're moving around dancing the whole conversation, you don't notice that. But if you see it on video, it's so helpful, and really have those friends, and like you said, look in the camera lens. So we think that we actually have eye contact, and it's really something that we can train. It doesn't come naturally to any of us. So we have people who are joining us live. We have Mick Adam from Bruges, from Belgium. Hi, Mick. And we also have Gillian Whitney from Las Vegas, and she calls the camera lens for Lenny. So you always smile to Lenny when you're looking into the camera. And our friend John LeBron, hello, let's go. And he thought it was 100 times that you had practiced. Tell me about yourself. Was that the right answer?
That was the right answer. John knows. John knows.
All right. And we have Ohanes from Lebanon, and also we have Naveen. He also got the advice to close the closet behind himself. So it's really the best tip that you can, if you're going to a virtual interview, get a bookcase behind you, because recruiters, they have studied, and when they see a bookcase, they automatically give you biased, so they will believe that you are smarter than you really are. So just bring that bookcase, and you're good to go. And we have Ade here as well from the UK. Hello, everyone. So going back to the interviews, like, let's take those 3 best tips. What should people think about?
Absolutely. So I'd say 3 best tips to be more specific is I call them the easy threes. And this is not necessarily related to interviewing directly, but it helps you interview better. So my philosophy always, Tina, as you know, is if you do the harder thing outside of the interview room or the boardroom, the actual scenario becomes a joke, right? So, oh, go ahead.
No, it's so true. Listen to Brenden.
I mean, look at you. I mean, for you, like, interview is like a joke now. You're like, oh yeah, interviewing. I talked about mangoes last week. This is fun. So that's the key. So what are the easy threes? So the easy threes is number one, the random word exercise. So the random word exercise is really simple. All you have to do is you pick a random word, like phone, like case, like wall, like headphones, and you create random presentations out of thin air. And the key is spend 5 minutes every day doing five different words. And what this does is it helps you make sense out of nonsense. Because if you can make sense out of nonsense, you can make sense out of anything. So if somebody asks you a question you didn't really think about in an interview, they're not going to ask you if you had to pick between a dog and a duck, which one would you pick? Like, they're not going to ask you that. They're going to ask you something that's kind of related to your field. So those questions will always be easier than the random word exercise. So the key is 5 minutes a day will allow you to do this exercise over like 150 times after a month. That's number one. Number two of our easy threes is question drills. I'm sure we've always been in a situation where somebody asks us a question in an interview and we don't really know the answer to the question. So instead, what I would encourage your audience to think about, Tiina, is every day, especially in the context of job interviews, think of one question, just one every day for 5 minutes. Think of one question that somebody could ask you and write the answer for 5 minutes. But if you do that once a day for 5 minutes for a year, Tiina, you'll have answered 365 questions. There'll be nothing that you can get asked that will surprise you. Why did you leave your last job? Okay, let me write an answer for 5 minutes. Why would you want to work here? Let me write an answer for 5 minutes. Just do that small bits every day, exponentially compounds over time. And then finally, number three of our easy threes, send 3 video messages to people that you love. You don't have to, I'm not going to tell you to send it to employers. I'm not going to tell you to send it to people you're interviewing with. People might be too scared to do that. But let's do that with the people that we already love, the people that really support us, the people that we really appreciate. I always like to say, Tina, as you know, we always take our winners for granted. The people really pour into this. So 15 minutes every day, team. 5 minutes random word exercise, 5 minutes question drills, and 5 minutes 3 video messages a day. And those three things alone will put you in a category of one.
Wow, this is really good advice because uh, when it comes to video, I see video interviews are becoming so common, and I don't see it changing anytime in the future, at least the first interview. And you really have to make a good impression on video, and nobody likes to be on video. So, starting with the low hanging fruit, sending videos to your friends and family, that's really it feels silly in the beginning, but it's like a muscle. You train it, and you get really much better. And how long should be the video? Because I know people don't have all day watching your videos. Like, how many minutes are we talking about?
Great point, Tina. What I would say is always, what I tell all of us is we don't get rewarded on how well we do something in communication. We get rewarded on how many times we do it. So for me,
Mm.
the video messages, I mean, yeah, make them 30 seconds, but there's no rule. There's no rule. Like, a lot of my video messages that I send people are like 20 seconds, 15 seconds. It doesn't need to be like this 15-minute documentary. Oh, Tina, you changed my life. I woke up one morning and I saw your suit. I was like, oh my God. Like, you don't have to go into like unless you really like the person, unless they've really made that much of a transformation in your life. But a 10-second video message is enough. And here's why, team. I want all of you to think about this, and feel free to type it in the chat, team. Just type, how long have you worked in corporate? Okay, how many years do you have in corporate? Even if you're a business owner now, for some of you, a lot of you might have worked in corporate, and the answers that you might type are like 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 15 years. So whatever the number is, now I want you to reflect on, in your entire corporate career, how many times did you get a video message from a boss or an employer or a supervisor? A video message just saying happy holidays, or just saying, hey, Tina, really appreciate all the hard work you do in the company. I hope you're having a wonderful week. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. But here's the thing, team. All of you, almost all of you, will answer 0 in the chat. Some people have worked in their companies for 10 years, Tina. 10 years, not like 10 days. 10 years, like a whole decade, and they've never received one video message. And it goes back to what you said, Tina. Video is hard for most people, which is exactly the point. It's because it's hard that makes it exciting. Going back to, if we communicate 20% better than our competition, notice how I didn't say 200%. Notice how I didn't say 2000%. Notice how I didn't say 2,000,000%. I said 220%. So if we just send the videos, we're already ahead of 99% of people.
Yeah, that's really wonderful because we don't get those videos, and they need to be personalized, saying the person's name so they feel special. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a long one because nobody wants a 5-minute video. Just a quick one will make somebody's day. And what you mentioned about the random word exercise, I remember you saying that on Gillian Whitney's LinkedIn Live, and I started doing that, and I made it when I was driving, when it was red light, and just doing the random word exercise, it really was magical. But it doesn't help you if you know it. You also have to take action and practice it. That's what really makes the difference.
Absolutely. It's all about the practice, right? And that's what makes it perfect.
So what would be your final advice? I mean, anyone can go to MasterTalk on YouTube and find hundreds of videos. Type something that you want to know about public speaking, about communication. Brenden has the video for you. You can watch them anytime. Follow him on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Um, so really, that is the best resource. And also, there is a monthly webinar that you're doing, which is also packed with lots of value. So yeah,
Absolutely.
how can people find you?
Absolutely, Tina. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the great conversation. Always wonderful to see you. So, two easy ways to keep in touch. The first one, you actually explained it better than I did. I would, MasterTalk's YouTube channel, you can check it out. And the second way, going back to the free trainings, we do that every month or so, sometimes every few weeks. So, for those of you who want to register for that, it's free coaching. You can go to rockstarcommunicator.com, or since we're on LinkedIn, it's just the first link in my featured section on my LinkedIn profile. You can just click that and register. So now going into the final piece, I would say this. It's just a question, Tina. I would love your audience to think about. And the question is simply this: how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? Thanks, Annette. Looking forward to seeing you there. How would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? So many of us, Tina, we dream about the expensive things we want to buy, the vacations that we want to go on, the Ferraris that we want to cruise in, but very few of us dream about a world in which we're exceptional communicators. Because communication is so much more than the next job interview, getting the next pay raise, speaking on a stage. It's every interaction that we have with every human being that we meet in our lives. What do we want that life to look like? And once we realize there's a correlation between communication and leading a fulfilling life, that's what gets us excited to do the random word exercise 5 minutes a day, to do the question drill 5 minutes a day, to send the video messages and actually improve our game to mastering our communication skills.
Wow, that really makes you think and makes you want to be the change that you want to see. So we have Sonal. Hi, Sonal, joining me, my neighbor. You were also on her LinkedIn Live. So it's really so fun to see our friends here today as well to join us live and talk about communication. It's really not only about the presentations and public speaking, but you also work with children. So tell me about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Tina. I would say for me, working with children is more of an impact thing for me because
Mm.
since my mission is to help every human being on earth become exceptional speakers, at the end of the day, it's important that I learn to coach kids because they'll give me a perspective and a simplification that I need to have, because I can't talk about presentations with 5-year-olds. They don't know what a presentation is. So I need to tell them to play this game. It's like a whole different system that I need to operate from. And it was those experiences and I still coach. I spend 10% of my time coaching kids, where it gives me better ammunition, better expertise, better thought perspective to coach people who are older. So I've learned a lot more from coaching kids than pretty much anything I've done in my life, because it requires so much more patience, right? So much more energy, because you're always like this. You're always yelling, or else the kids just don't pay attention to you. And yeah, it's been a fun ride, and yeah, I have a lot of fun coaching our clients as kids for sure.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It really takes different kind of skills, and I'm really happy that you came to this live and shared your knowledge. I'm happy to call you my friend, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you, Tina, and the impact that you're creating in the world as well.
Thank you. Bye bye.